Shaded by live oaks, the Charnley-Norwood house overlooks the verdant Mississippi coastline. It's not an elaborate design. In fact, the house seems very straightforward. Yet the Charnley-Norwood house is one of the most significant buildings in America, one that helped shape 20th century American residential architecture.
The Charnley-Norwood house is one of the most interesting and important early exemplars of the horizontal American residence. It's a precursor of many things that would come to populate the American landscape and, in fact, set a precedent that has been repeated around the world. But it is, in essence, distinctly American.
Perhaps that's because two of the world's most talented architects claim to have designed it: Louis Sullivan and Frank Lloyd Wright.
It's always a fascinating question, who shot whom and so on. And I don't believe we're ever going to know the percentage of attribution to Wright or Sullivan.
But Wright and Sullivan embraced the American landscape in a new type of building that was horizontal. It reaches out into the landscape and positions people in a more symbiotic relationship with their surroundings. This was new.
The history of this house has been a perilous one. It caught fire and was immediately rebuilt. Over a century later, the most destructive hurricane in U.S. history would nearly cause its demise.
Pieces of the building were scattered over many acres. We were able to use volunteers to help us fish major wall sections out of the bayou behind the house. And so it was in terrible, terrible condition.
Yet the house has endured, a reflection of the serenity that architect Louis Sullivan found when he first arrived in Ocean Springs. The year was 1890. Ah, what a delight, he wrote. What luxury of peace within the velvety caressing air, the odor of the waters and the pines. Sullivan was known as the father of the skyscraper. He was at the zenith of his career in the 1890s, yet pressure was taking its toll. Worn and exhausted, he was vacationing in New Orleans when he ran into wealthy friends. The Charnleys were also from Chicago and convinced him to visit a coastal paradise they'd recently discovered. So Sullivan set out with them for Ocean Springs, a seaside village on Mississippi's coast. In that lush natural setting, Sullivan at last found the peace of mind he'd been seeking. He and the Charnleys purchased a large parcel of beachfront property. Sullivan called it a stately forest of amazing beauty, arranged as though by the hand of an unseen poet. Sullivan would design two similar vacation homes, one for himself and a neighboring one for the Charnleys. This would become his place of rejuvenation. This would become his place of peace.
I think that this was Sullivan's extended architectural office, meaning that some of the great thinking about American architecture took place inside these walls.
Sullivan found a kind of unique piece there. And to read his, I would say, almost maudlin writing from that period, where he described the natural environment, but he found a sort of harmony in gardening. And his own garden was extensive, included rose gardens and including an irrigation system. It was a fascinating place that fed his soul. And he wrote poetry as a result. He wrote a rather florid prose as a result, and it helped to form a basis of his own thinking. So this place influenced American architectural theory and history.
Yet historians debate who actually designed the houses. In 1890, a young draftsman named Frank Lloyd Wright worked for Sullivan's Chicago firm. Sullivan thought of himself as a mentor to the younger architect, while Wright referred to Sullivan as his Liebermeister. Wright's job with Sullivan? Primarily designing and drawing the firm's residential commissions. Principal architects often give designs to protégés to draft. So to many historians, it seems likely the two collaborated on the project. Yet Frank Lloyd Wright later took full credit for the watershed designs.
Wright didn't just say that he designed it all, because Wright was prone to say that he designed the universe. But he also said that it was, having said that this is my work, it means he thought this was an excellent building. So there's no doubt about that part. Did he really design it? Who knows? Did he think this was really fine architecture? No doubt about it.
Outdoors and indoors merge in a way that had not been typical of 19th century construction. I would call it the American horizontal cottage. Who did what? I don't know, but I know that the collaboration of these two people produced a winner, or more than one winner.
In 1896, Charnley sold his home to another lumber baron, Frederick Norwood. Shortly after, the home burned, but the Norwoods rebuilt their house with Sullivan's help. Sadly, financial reverses forced the architect to sell his own cottage in 1910, a loss he mourned until his death. For over a century, the two companion houses blended quietly into the fabric of Ocean Springs. Then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina roared ashore. The record-breaking storm ravaged the Mississippi Gulf Coast with a wall of water more than 30 feet high. Thousands of historic buildings, including Sullivan's cottage, were crushed and pulled into the sea. The Charnley-Norwood house and its guest cottage survived, but barely.
Charnley's property was lifted off its foundations by the tidal surge and washed backwards. The chimneys collapsed onto the house. One end of the house actually folded up under the building, and the roof line on the east side was buried in the dirt. So we issued the call to our preservation partners nationwide and asked for assistance from preservation architects, engineers, historic preservation specialists, and God bless them, they came from all over North America at their own expense and camped out with us down here.
Volunteer crews scoured the bayous and woods for any remnants of the Charnley-Norwood house that might be salvaged. The building was stabilized while preservationists fought to head off demolition and searched for funds to rebuild. The state finally acquired the building in 2011, and the meticulous restoration process began.
When we initiated the project, we really had no idea how we were going to make it work or fund it. This is one of those things where you just go out on faith that you'll make it work. You'll find a way to make it work. And fortunately, that turned out to be the case. And it took an awful lot of people having a great deal of patience and faith for this project to turn out what it is today.
Here is an important place and an important building and complex between the guest cottage and the main house in a place that is really unusual in the history of American arts and letters, that has been salvaged from almost total destruction in a heroic effort.
Today, the Charnley-Norwood house stands as a symbol of courage, a striking testament to daring minds who explored new realms of design. But the building is also a monument to preservationists who had the vision to understand that saving our past only brightens the promise of the future.
What should we do with this building today? We should celebrate it, we should share it, and we should find a use that will ensure that a subsequent generation can learn from the gifted and sympathetic spirits that created it.